This is Global Ummah Unity, faith, history, and truth in one voice.
The story of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam begins long before his actual birth. It begins with a prayer, the prayer of Prophet Ibrahim, also known as Abraham, alayhi salam, who stood in the barren land of Arabia and asked Allah to send a messenger to his descendants. Generations later, that prayer would be fulfilled with the arrival of the final prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was born in the year 570 CE in the city of Mecca, located in the Arabian Peninsula. This year is famously known as the Year of the Elephant, a reference to an attempted attack on the Kaaba by a Christian Abyssinian army led by Abraha. His army included elephants, but the attack was miraculously defeated by flocks of birds sent by Allah, a story preserved in Surah Al-Fil. The Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was born into the respected tribe of Quraysh, and specifically into the clan of Banu Hashim, a noble and honored family. His father, Abdullah, died before he was born, making him an orphan even at birth. His mother, Amina, cared for him during his early childhood, but she too passed away when he was just 6 years old. With both parents gone, young Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was raised by his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, and later by his uncle, Abu Talib. Despite his orphaned status, he was known from a young age for his noble character, trustworthiness, and deep thoughtfulness. He never engaged in idol worship, gambling, or drinking, common practices in Meccan society at the time. His early life was not marked by wealth or luxury. He worked as a shepherd, a job held by many prophets, and learned patience, responsibility, and humility. Later, he became a trader and was known as Al-Amin, the Trustworthy, by the people of Mecca for his honesty in business and his integrity. One of the most significant moments in his early adult life was his marriage to Khadija, a wealthy and respected businesswoman who admired his character. Despite being older than him, their marriage was one of mutual respect, love, and support. Khadija would become the first person to believe in his prophethood years later. The world into which Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born was full of injustice. Tribalism dominated society. The poor were neglected, women had few rights, and idol worship was widespread. But even as a young man, he stood apart from that world. He often retreated to a cave in the mountains to reflect, to seek truth, and to disconnect from the corruption around him. This period of calm before revelation would soon come to an end, as divine inspiration approached. But the roots of the final message were being laid in his character, in his trials, and in the silent strength of a man chosen to carry the light of truth.
As Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reached the age of 40, he became increasingly withdrawn from the noise and corruption of Meccan society. He would often retreat to the cave of Hira, located in the mountains outside Mecca, spending days in deep reflection, worship, and contemplation. He was seeking truth, clarity, and connection with the Creator. Then, one night, during the month of Ramadan, everything changed. In the solitude of the cave, the angel Gabriel, appeared to him with a powerful command: read. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, startled and overwhelmed, replied, "I cannot read." The angel embraced him and repeated the command 2 more times before revealing the first verses of the Qur'an. Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not. Surah Al-Alaq, 96, 1-5. Shaken and terrified, the Prophet ﷺ rushed home to his beloved wife, Khadija, radiyallahu anha, who comforted him and reassured him of his character and his truthfulness. She took him to her cousin, Waraqa ibn Nawfal, a learned Christian who confirmed that Muhammad ﷺ had encountered the same angel who brought revelation to Moses alayhi salam. Thus began the final and greatest mission in human history, the prophethood of Muhammad ﷺ. In the early days, the message of Islam was shared in private. The Prophet ﷺ began inviting close family and friends. Among the first to embrace Islam were Khadija, Abu Bakr, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and Zayd ibn Haritha. As the message grew, so did resistance. The Quraysh, the powerful tribe that controlled Mecca, could not accept the idea of one God, especially when it meant abandoning their idols and privilege. They mocked him, accused him of madness, and tried to silence him. But the Prophet ﷺ stood firm, never wavering. His message was clear. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. He called for justice, compassion, charity, and moral reform. For 13 years in Mecca, he preached with patience, enduring hardship, insult, and even physical attacks. His followers were tortured, boycotted, and forced into exile. But still, they held on to the truth. In the face of persecution, the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions to remain patient and to respond with dignity. The early Muslims were not allowed to fight back. Instead, they were trained spiritually, learning to put their trust in Allah and the hereafter. One of the most beautiful characteristics of the Prophet ﷺ during this period was his unshakable hope. Even when mocked by his own people, he would pray for their guidance. Even when faced with rejection, he never gave up. This phase of silent strength laid the foundation for the Islamic message that would later reshape history. Revelation continued to come down, guiding the Prophet ﷺ on every step, addressing issues of faith, morality, worship, and society.
The migration to Medina, known as the Hijra, marked a turning point in the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and in the history of Islam. In Medina, the Prophet ﷺ was welcomed not as a persecuted preacher, but as a leader and statesman. Here, for the first time, the Muslim community had a home, a place where they could live out the teachings of Islam openly. The Prophet ﷺ established a multi-faith constitution that granted religious freedom and equal rights to Muslims, Jews, and others. This was a revolutionary model of justice and coexistence. Under his leadership, the city of Medina became a center of worship, learning, and brotherhood. The Prophet ﷺ continued to receive revelation, guiding his people in matters of faith, family, trade, law, and governance. He built a just society where the rights of women, orphans, the poor, and even animals were honored. Despite growing strength, the Muslims were not spared from conflict. Battles were fought, not for conquest, but in defense of their right to exist and to practice their faith freely. The Prophet ﷺ always emphasized ethics in warfare, forbidding harm to civilians, property, and the environment. Over the years, the Prophet ﷺ sent letters to kings and emperors, inviting them to Islam. Some rejected him, others showed respect. But the message was clear. Islam was not a local movement. It was a universal call to truth. Eventually, after years of hardship and patience, the Prophet ﷺ and his companions returned to Mecca, not with vengeance, but with forgiveness. The conquest of Mecca was bloodless. Idols were destroyed, the Kaaba was purified, and the people were given amnesty. This moment marked the triumph of faith, mercy, and prophetic character. Soon after, Islam spread across the Arabian Peninsula. Delegations came from far and wide to learn from the Prophet. But in the final year of his life, he delivered one last message to all of humanity, his farewell sermon. In it, he reminded the people of their duty to one another, of equality, of rights, of justice. He said, "No Arab is superior to a non-Arab, and no non-Arab is superior to an Arab, except by piety and good action." He also said, "I leave behind me two things, the Qur'an and my Sunnah. If you follow them, you will never go astray." Shortly after, the Prophet ﷺ fell ill. He passed away in the arms of his beloved wife, Aisha radiallahu anha, after completing the greatest mission ever entrusted to a human being. His legacy lives on, not just in books or history, but in the hearts of billions of people who bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad ﷺ is his final messenger. The story of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is not just a story of the past. It is a living guide of character, mercy, patience, strength, and love for humanity. And it all began with a prayer.
Thanks so much for watching this video on Global Ummah Unity. If you learned something new today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep uncovering the untold stories of the Islamic world together. See you in the next one, inshallah.